Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. So is the writing on the wall for coal power? That's one conclusion that's been drawn from China's big announcement in New York. The country says that it'll stop building coal-fired power plants overseas. Addressing the UN General Assembly, President Xi Jinping made the promise as he vowed to accelerate efforts to help the world battle the climate change crisis. Details are scant, but the decision has been applauded by activists and politicians.
China will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. This requires tremendous hard work, and we will make every effort to meet these goals. China will step up support for other developing countries in developing green and low-carbon energy and will not build new coal-fired power projects abroad. A year ago, global leaders attended the high-level meetings marking the 75th anniversary of the UN and issued a declaration pledging to fight COVID-19 in solidarity, tackle challenges together, uphold multilateralism, strengthen the role of the UN and work for the common future of present and coming generations.
Xi Jinping. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line by the globally recognized scholar on environmental policy and climate change, Professor Chukwumerije Okereke, a UN scientist who served as co-director of the Centre for Climate and Justice in the UK and is a member of the UN body known as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We've lost a bit of time, but I understand you were in a very important meeting, so let's crack on. I understand that scientists and activists have been waiting for an announcement like this for almost 10 years. Does that suggest that this is a really big deal for the climate policy and advocacy community?
Thank you very much, Charles. It is a big deal. It is a turning point. It is a momentous occasion because for a very long time, China has been building an average of one big coal-fired power plant per week. And 58% of China's energy comes from coal. No wonder China accounts for 28% of global CO2 emission. And China is also responsible for building hundreds of coal-fired power plants abroad. And so for China to say that it's not only going to reduce its dependence on coal internally, but crucially that it will stop to fund coal-fired power plants abroad, that is a big deal. I think this is a very, very powerful signal that developing countries like Nigeria would ignore at their own peril. But in terms of the global stock of CO2 emission, they're very, very significant. Over the years, China has invested in building about 300 coal-fired power plants around the world, including in Turkey, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Egypt, in Philippines. And I think about 2 weeks ago, a brand new coal-fired power plant was commissioned in Pakistan that was largely funded by China. This is about $50 billion per annum that China have been investing in building coal-fired power plants abroad. So this is a momentous occasion. This is significant.
Right, but as we're awaiting more details of this announcement to know how far it actually goes. I mean, in terms of what it means for whether it's going to affect projects that have already they've started building or all that sort of thing. But it's presumably significant also, Professor, that China hasn't made the same commitment to stop building new coal plants within its borders, because China is the world's largest producer and consumer of coal, and over 2/3 of its electricity comes from coal.
Absolutely correct. In 2020 alone, China put in about 40 gigawatts of new coal power plants. I understand from research done by some colleagues from Harvard that a total of 470 gigawatts of coal power plant is planned in China. And they further propose 73.5 gigawatts of coal. Now, this is 5 times more than the rest of the world, which is about 19 or 13.9 gigawatts. And so if this commitment exonerates China's own internal coal-fired power plant construction, then that will be very sad, that will be unfortunate, and that will mean that the total effect in terms of cumulative carbon or CO2 emissions will be very far less compared to what it would be if China was looking internally. But here is the point, I think, that is important politically. We see the likes of the US and other developed countries, for the sake of climate change, making this kind of pronouncement that they will stop to fund coal-fired power plants and even on oil and gas. And we see that oil and gas continues to become an important part of their energy mix or portfolio up until 2050. And so that raises the question of why would these countries be stopping the funding of fossil fuel power plants in Africa and the rest of the world, while still allowing fuel sources from those to become part of their own energy mix. This raises the question of hypocrisy and power politics that doesn't augur well for considerations of justice and equity in global climate change governance.
Yes, that's a good point that you make. But of course, the other big thing that's emerged from all of this is the importance of funding, because obviously the developing countries are going cap in hand, trying to get money to transform their economies and make them much greener. And ratcheting up the finance is something that we saw President Biden do just barely 24 hours ago. How much of a game changer is that?
Oh, it is definitely a step in the right direction. We have spoken, you and me, Charles, about this issue in the past, and I have made a call for Biden to show a demonstration of leadership by, first of all, bringing back the nearly $4 billion that Obama pledged, which was scrapped by President Trump, but to significantly ratchet up the pledge, the financial pledge from the US. So this roughly $11 billion is a step in the right direction, but it is still a long way to go because, as you would know, the total projection for climate impact in the developing countries is in the tune of $500 billion per annum. And some people make the mistake of thinking that what we are saying here is $100 billion, here is the cash, and everybody can go to rest. But that is absolutely not the point. The calculation is $100 billion per annum from 2020. We are in 2021, so actually we should be thinking about roughly $200 billion. And so this is a step in the right direction, but there is a long way to go. I am hoping that actually there are many questions to even ask regarding the pledge. Number one, how much of it will be additional to existing overseas development assistance? We know from the research that we have done that a lot of countries pledge money that are actually rerouting existing ODA and rebranding it as climate finance. There is also a question about who will be eligible to access the money. I think he did say low-income countries, but if you define low-income countries in certain ways, that will exclude countries like Nigeria that are seen as kind of middle-income countries, according to World Bank statistics. But also there are questions about how much of it will actually fund adaptation. What is the way of assessing the money, and how much of it will be grant as opposed to loan? The work that we have done in the IPCC shows that many developed countries are giving poor countries climate finance in the form of high interest loan. That is not the definition of climate justice.
Okay.
So we'll still
Professor
look to
Okereke,
see
I'm really
how
sorry to interrupt you, but we're out of time. But I want to thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and around the world, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.